Welcome to the first edition of Between Two Great Lakes, a podcast by Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper. I'm your host, Adam Zaremski. Now, New York is a Great Lakes state, and we want to highlight and talk about all things related to that idea. From important advocacy efforts, restoration projects, and fun things to do throughout the Blueway, which are spots that give people access to the water. So thank you for listening. On today's show, we have a variety of things to go over. One, if you're not already familiar with this acronym, you'll be hearing about it a lot more, and we'll educate you and let you know what you need to do to watch out. But PFAS is the first thing we'll be highlighting. After that, we'll discuss some exciting news. Our spring sweep is coming up. If you haven't registered already, you should go do it. But I'll have someone here to talk about the importance of the spring sweep, what it does for the community, and why we need you. So let's get right into it. First up, I have Elizabeth Cute here. She is our Senior Manager for Community Engagement and our go-to source for anything related to PFAS and these chemicals. Hi, Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm good, Adam. How are you?
Doing very well. So like I said, we're looking into this, and you've been studying this for a while, the PFAS.
Yeah, I've been learning a lot about PFAS the last few years while working at Waterkeeper, starting really following some of the drinking water regulations in New York State, but it's expanded since then, what I've been learning and keeping my attention on as things are really moving rapidly this last year.
And so first thing, the PFAS is PFAS or PFOS, but it's an acronym, and I'm hoping you could tell us what that acronym stands for.
PFAS, the letters PFAS, stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Most people pronounce it PFAS. PFOS is just one type of PFAS. Most people will say PFOS, spelling it out, or some people say PFOS, but that is just one type of PFAS. It's a really large, diverse class of man-made chemicals of over 9,000 compounds, but PFAS, the PFAS acronym, is that umbrella name or term.
What are they? What are PFAS?
So they're man-made chemicals. They are often referred to as forever chemicals, as they don't naturally break down in the environment. They have very strong bonds from a chemical standpoint. They came into popularity in 1950s or 60s, I believe.
And what were they used for?
They were used for industrial and consumer product purposes. The application of PFAS made products waterproof, stain-proof, heat-resistant. So those properties were pretty advantageous for things like firefighting foam or rainproof clothing. Non-stick cookware was a big one, the Teflon pans. And that's where a lot of, the average person would be exposed to PFAS. Some of those other uses were job place oriented. So if you were a firefighter, you might have PFAS exposure from using the foam, but your average person wouldn't be exposed to firefighting foam very often. So some of those consumer products is where people started to get exposed, and then over time some health issues started to pop up in areas where either these PFAS were being created. So there was some environmental exposure from pollution or leaks, or they're being exposed on a daily basis by some of the different products they use. And PFAS are even found in cosmetics, so things that people are applying to their skin, to their face, chapsticks and things. So right onto your lips and your mouth. So there's a lot of vectors for exposure.
So some communities started having issues and were curious about their water sources. Any within New York that you can recall?
One example was in New York itself, a drinking water crisis in Hoosick Falls. And this was one of the first stories I read about when I was learning about PFAS. And this was a community that had a industrial facility that was making PFAS and using PFAS, specifically PFOA. And in 2015, members of the community were bringing forth different health concerns that they were noticing up to, professionals, town councils, eventually up to the EPA. And, they were experiencing different cancers and rashes, and they wanted to know what was going on. And some of those folks even tested their own water to try to figure out what was going on. And what was alarming to me reading about this community experiencing these issues was, it's 2015 and there's still a big lack of regulation related to these very harmful chemicals. So it really caught my interest and attention, and I've really enjoyed learning more about it and hoping to help others learn about it so that we can continue to, make smarter choices and control these substances to protect our health.
Now, Western New York, too, has had some issues. I'm thinking in the Niagara Falls region, Air Reserve Station, I believe.
Yeah, so once we, as a waterkeeper, we started to get more involved in learning about PFAS locally. We knew that New York State was going to be regulating two types of PFAS in drinking water, PFOA and PFOS. But we wanted to know in what other waterways in the surface waters were PFAS present. And through a project with Waterkeeper Alliance, we joined over 100 different keepers and tested some different streams and rivers throughout the country. And we tested a handful in Western New York and had some elevated levels. And one in particular, like you mentioned, was in Niagara County along Cayuga Creek.
And how was this site in particular chosen?
We picked this sampling site because we knew of, past known groundwater contamination. Due to that firefighting foam, like I mentioned before, there's an airport and an air base up in Niagara Falls, and Cayuga Creek runs right under that airport and that air base. So it had some known groundwater contamination due to the use of that PFAS type of firefighting foam, and we were curious to test upstream and downstream of that location just to see what were the surface water levels.
What did those results show?
Downstream saw some elevated PFAS levels, and which was very, kind of alarming. And now we're starting to sample some more sites, definitely bringing those results up to the DEC and other folks so that they know what's happening. There's other data being collected regionally, so we're trying to do our due diligence and learn about what's happening so that we can inform the public and other folks that might be interested to learn what's happening in our water. Are our waterways safe? What is in our water?
Sure, I guess for people wondering, should people be scared? And I guess if exposed to these, what can potentially happen? What have some of the studies shown as far as health effects?
I would definitely be concerned. The health issues related to PFAS are pretty serious, but those types of health issues occur due to, repeated exposure or elevated exposure. I'd be most concerned about the drinking water that people are consuming or types of exposure that may be occurred through your profession. And those risks should be, provided to you by your employer. But knowing more about your drinking water is a really great first step to learn and to protect yourself.
And how would people know more about their drinking water and what's in it? I'm just wondering, is there some sort of documentation out there that they can access? So
you can all find drinking water reports from your water supplier if you're on public water. If you have a private well, you'd have to do your own testing to know what type of PFAS could be in your drinking water. But public water suppliers in New York State have to test for PFOA and PFOS currently. And if you Google City of Buffalo drinking water report or Erie County drinking water report or wherever you live, you can find your most recent drinking water report online. It's a really great resource. Learn about where your water comes from, what types of things they are testing for. It's all regulated. And then you can see the levels of those two types of PFAS. And currently, New York State, the maximum level that those two types of PFAS can reach without action occurring, like a cleanup action, is 10 parts per trillion.
What would happen if it was higher than that total?
If it was over that, there would be action taken. But currently, there are no drinking water reports in our area that are elevated above that maximum contaminant level of 10 parts per trillion. That is reassuring. And just last week, the EPA released their proposed national primary drinking water regulation, which addresses the whole country, and each state has to match those levels they're proposing. So New York will have to drop those maximum contaminant levels down to 4 parts per trillion. That will protect our drinking water even more. And that national regulation includes some additional types of PFAS. So that's really great steps in the right direction. And New York State isn't waiting for those national levels. They've been one of the states really kind of paving the path forward, one of the first states to regulate for 2 types of PFAS, and we're waiting on some final regulations for 23 additional PFAS in our drinking water. So, that is a really great first step to protect our health.
Is there anyone that people can contact if they have these concerns or if they want to make their voices heard, like state regulators, federal or local officials?
Folks can contact their local representatives and let them know, what issues matter to them and what they'd like to see. Let them hear from you. Give them an email or give them a call and let them know that you're concerned about PFAS. Make your voice heard.
And you've been updating our website, too, with this information. So if people want to go there, they can go to bnwaterkeeper.org and search for PFAS. You've been doing that right along over the years. So that seems like a pretty good resource if people want to start there and then go beyond.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to make this really complex, very scientific information that can get confusing. We're trying to distill it down to a more digestible type of resource so folks can feel informed, feel like they have a step that they can take to, either protect themselves or get involved in some of the solutions. And, it's really important that we all come together on this. There's a real need to control and remediate this type of pollution, and the effort that it will take to, eliminate the production and use of these chemicals is going to be, complex, expensive, and government cannot, solve it alone. We really need to push for more producer responsibility and accountability and, hearing the voice and concerns of the public and having, a strong group of advocates is a really great way to take action and make change. And we've seen this in New York. We've seen it in Western New York. And I think this is a really great time for everybody to stand up and let folks know what matters to them and what we want to see change to protect our health of our current and future generations and protect our waterways. So definitely keep your eyes and ears open for PFAS-related pollution or regulations. It's not going to go away anytime soon, so definitely something to get a little familiar with.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. It was great talking with you.
That was Elizabeth Cute, our Senior Manager for Community Engagement. Next up, we'll be talking with Emily Diet about the Spring Suite. That's coming up next. Now, our waterways are great to explore. It's an awesome resource. Part of Waterkeeper's mission is to get people to be able to access the waterways. But it's no fun if going there and the land is covered in trash. And so, over its 30 plus year history, Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper has continued to work on cleaning the waterways, and one important function is the annual spring sweep. To talk more about this, I have Emily Diet, Program Manager for Community Engagement. She's been getting ready for this Earth Day event, which is the largest single day cleanup in Western New York. Emily, how is planning going?
It's going awesome. Really excited. Tomorrow is actually, I'll be doing a presentation focused on data collection called Data Stories and Advocacy. So that'll really just be getting volunteers excited about how they can increase their impact with data collection at the sweep, and just a little bit about the CleanSwell app that we'll be using at the spring sweep. And then also we've started the exciting supply bin packing process. We'll be distributing supplies at our site captain trainings, which will be starting the first week of April, which I'm happy to say are returning in person for the first time since 2019. Really looking forward to for those things in the next couple of weeks. And of course, our registration is open and filling up fast, so that's always a good thing.
It is. We've had a lot of response with the registration already. And I guess for the people who maybe aren't familiar with it, would you mind explaining what is the spring sweep?
It's Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper's largest annual cleanup event of the year, where volunteers register for the spring sweep and they get to select from over 35 different sites throughout the city of Buffalo and the greater Niagara region. And they'll be working together with volunteer groups to remove trash from our watershed and protecting our local drinking water. Something that started really when Waterkeeper, when it was first an organization focusing on the Buffalo River. And so it's really exciting to see 30 years later, we're still doing a cleanup effort, and now one that engages thousands of volunteers throughout Western New York.
1,000 volunteers. Yeah, that's about every year. It seems like the Waterkeepers manages to get that many people, right?
Yes, that's correct. So on average, anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 volunteers participate in the annual spring sweep. So it's definitely very impressive. And there's also so many other organizations that do cleanup. So even more volunteers on Earth Day are cleaning up as well. But yes, we have definitely a very dedicated volunteer base that participates with us for this event.
And these volunteers will be going out to, you said 35 sites? And I guess where are they all located?
So we're actually, for our public registration, we're up to 37 sites and growing. So they are located, I would say a little less than half of them are located within the city of Buffalo boundaries. And then the others are peppered throughout the Niagara River watershed. So as far north as Niagara Falls, we'll have a site at Gill Creek Park. And then south to that will be at Hamburg Town Beach, will be the farthest south we'll be visiting. And we also have a couple sites on Grand Island.
So this, for people who are signing up, they'll go to the registration page, and they do have to pick a site, correct?
Yes, when you go to our cleanups page, the spring sweep registration option is right on the top. You can also, if you scroll down, you can visit, there's a Google map there, so you can actually see very specifically where the sites are located. And then once you click into the registration, you'll see there's a list there. It'll note what city or town the site is located in first. So it might say Cheektowaga and then Cheektowaga Town Park, or Buffalo, Skajackwada Creek Mount. You'll see them all listed there. You select your site that way, and then it'll ask for you for your contact information so that we can make sure we can reach out to you ahead of the sweep with some of those additional details that you'll need for the day of.
I want to note in a moment how much the spring sweep often collects as far as trash, but you got me thinking each of these sites is kind of managed by a volunteer, correct?
That's right. That's right. Yes. We have an incredible group of dedicated volunteers that are site captains. These are trained volunteers. Many of them have been volunteers with us for a very long time. And really, they are, the leaders of this event. Without our site captains, we would not be able to lead a successful spring sweep. And so just really grateful for those that take that extra step for the spring sweep. They join us at a training. They learn all about how to safely lead volunteers and, of course, data collection. And they make sure they're the ones collecting everyone's information when they come in and sign in. They share our mission and anything kind of relevant to that site. They're really the most important part of the sweep. That is why it is so successful, is because of those site captain volunteers. So big thank you to them.
Yeah, it's incredible. And hearing from you and others about how many people do that, I was blown away. That was really impressive to hear that. And then I was also looking at some of the stats as far as how much gets collected in one day.
So yeah, the amount of trash we collect can be pretty staggering. It was 2018 was probably the largest amount I saw looking at some of our previous records. And these are estimated weights coming from the amount of trash bags that we collect. But in 2018, volunteers gathered an estimated 40,000 pounds of trash or 20 tons of litter, which is pretty crazy.
You've been talking about the Clean Swell app, and that's something I believe you're hoping people will have. It's an app that they can download, I believe. If you want to highlight that a little more, just so people understand what to look for with that app and how that helps us.
The Clean Swell app was created by the Ocean Conservancy. So in the past, we've collected specific litter data in September for the International Coastal Cleanup. And in the last few years, we were doing that on data cards, paper data cards. And the Ocean Conservancy has really upgraded this incredible digital data collection option called Clean Swell. And it's a super user-friendly app. You do have to create an account. So we ask that volunteers download the app if they have a smartphone ahead of the sweep and create their account. And really, it is something that is connected to the largest litter database in the world called TIDES, or Trash Information Database for Education and Solutions. And that's also managed by the Ocean Conservancy. But there we have any data that is collected through Clean Swell is then uploaded there. So that's pretty awesome, because that resource is used not only for nonprofit organizations like us that protect water, but also for policymakers and scientists as well. So we are currently really growing the Great Lakes litter data that is stored on TIDES, because previously, a lot of the information was for the oceans, which we all know about. Plastic in the oceans. Really important that we build that litter database here to show that we need more Great Lakes protection, because that is our drinking water, right, for over 40 million people. Check out our website to download the Clean Swell app.
Do you know what the most common item is found as far as this trash and litter?
The number one thing we collect is plastic. Typically, it's always been cigarette butts, but just last year, looking at all of the items that were collected through Ocean Conservancy's Clean Swell app and the volunteers who did that, the number one was plastic pieces. That could be anything, broken down pieces. If they couldn't identify it as a bottle or a food wrapper or a plastic cap, it was labeled a plastic piece. That was the number one thing. And then right behind that, not far at all, were cigarette butts, which are typically the number one thing we've seen collected at our cleanups.
Whether with the Clean Swell app or just anecdotes, what are some unusual items that have been found over the years with this clean sweep?
I would say not too many unusual things, but one that stood out that we found was a bowling ball. Which is an unusual thing to throw along the shoreline. But many folks got a chuckle out of that. We definitely see a lot of larger items dumped, like furniture and metal, which I always find unusual, since, not only does the city, particularly the city of Buffalo, pick, and I'm sure other municipalities, they pick up large items from your regular trash. So no need to go find an abandoned field to do that. But also because metal can be scrapped for cash. Let's not forget. So, yeah, that was just one that stood out. I guess this isn't necessarily unusual, but we always find them in abundance, and it is a huge problem are the dumping of tires. Again, not unusual, but a really big problem. And so I always like to highlight, that in the city of Buffalo, there are drop-off days for tires, which is great because I know some folks think that maybe, even though they don't collect it in their regular trash. So keep your eye out for that as well.
Right, there are so many options instead of just throwing it along the shoreline. I guess that's the reason there is the spring sweep, and that is tied into the Great Lakes cleanup too. And I was hoping you could explain that a little bit more, what the Great Lakes cleanup involves.
Sure, yeah. So that is a Great Lakes basin-wide collaborative trash removal event that is working in tandem with folks throughout the Great Lakes Basin with the support of 19 partners who are organizing litter removal efforts along all 5 of our Great Lakes. So that's really exciting. It's a collaboration that Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper has led for the past 2 years. So we're excited. This is the 3rd annual Great Lakes cleanup event. And last year we had 7,962 volunteers working along the shorelines of our Great Lakes and protecting our water. So that was really awesome to see. Over 140,000 pounds of trash. So, again, thinking about plastics being that number one item that we're picking up on our shorelines, it's really encouraging and hopeful to hear, that much was taken away from getting the possibility of getting into our waterways.
Right. So we want people to sign up. We need the volunteers. Like you said, they're the biggest reason this is a success. People should go sign up, pick their site. Anything else they should do to prepare for that day?
Yeah, so we have definitely still plenty of volunteer need, even though spots are filling up fast. So I would say reserve your spot today. So go visit our registration page. Although we don't reserve spots for groups, as it is a first come, first serve registration process, there's plenty of volunteer needs at almost all of our sites. Check out the page, check out the map, see what's closest to you or maybe a different site you've never been to before. And then second, I would download the CleanSwell app that I talked about and get your account set up and check it out so that you're ready to go on the day of the sweep.
Well, I wish you luck with all this planning, Emily. You have a lot more to do, so best of luck with it.
Thanks so much, Adam.
So again, registration is open for this April 22nd event. That's Saturday, Earth Day. Go to our website, bnwaterkeeper.org/cleanups, and from there you can find the link to sign up. You'll have to pick your site and where you want to go. And just think, it's if you've never volunteered before, it's a quick 2-hour time frame to go out, find your site, clean up some garbage. And so any help you can do is much appreciated in this cleanup event. So go sign up. And the music from today's show, leading us in and taking us out, comes from a local Buffalo band, Snowbelt. They've got a new album out called Norris Avenue. You can find it on your streaming services. Thank you very much for listening. We are going to be back next month. Be well and do good.